because I had a thought, Ted, that there's a unique similarity actually between our two worlds, because there's the definition of exploration, and I was thinking about that actually last night when you were talking on stage with Alexandra, that there's the exploring of the physical world and there's the exploring of the world within, and the intersection of them both, and I think that's probably where we have some really interesting similarity.
Yeah.
So, and it's just a thought.
Well, no, I think it's a great thought, because so much of the history of exploration is going to a place for the first time and exploring it. And you're the first person here, the first person there. And as we were talking about last night, it's visiting a place once is not the end of exploration; it's the beginning. And the example we talked about last night was deep sea exploration. Where we're literally just proverbially and actually scraping the surface. There's so much more that goes, and so I think there's a lot of connectivity.
I do, and in an interesting way as well. If it may be one person or two people, and a team that supports them to make these explorations possible, but the reality is you're also bringing the world along with you with these great explorations, and I think that's something that the work that you do, and do you call it what do you call an institution, or
well, the Explorers Club itself is a not-for-profit.
So it's a
501c3 membership organization. So it's dedicated to the proposition of exploration and supporting it and enabling it, and then it's the thirst of knowledge, but knowledge in use for a better world ultimately.
I think it's neat though, because it's also symbolizing what everything that you're representing is about. What you've brought millions of people on those explorations, if you think about it in mindset, because of the fact that these are stories that live on, and this is what needs to happen right now with the urgency of the ocean. And I think the world that I operate in is trying to open up that the pathways so that we can bring the masses to the cause on these new explorations.
And I think that's one of the issues that's happening now is the science is pretty straightforward and clear. And we can still debate it and still talk about people who might have outlier views, but we sort of know what the issues are. And with respect to the ocean, it could be acidification, warming, sea level rise, overfishing. So we sort of know what those are, and now the goal is to go tackle them. And to your point, one of the most valuable aspects of tackling them is the storytelling that helps people make connections. Like Alexandra Cousteau, when you hear her talk about preserve the oceans, and we have to look for a richer humanity going forward, and a responsible, regenerative blue economy. Those are all things that sort of touch people and make them interested.
And that's a good point. We heard yesterday even the mention of cognitive dissonance, right? Where it just seems like the problem's too great that we can't, we choose to block it, to distance ourselves cognitively. And I think these searching for stories of hope are something that can really overcome that barrier of people trying to tune it off, because as I said, even yesterday, apathy is unacceptable now. Like, we have no choice. And I was going to ask you actually, if you ever wake up in the middle of the night, what you think about, what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, well, definitely the issues we've been talking about with the future of the planet, and this sort of wake-up call, literally and figuratively, about what are we going to do. Ken Kimmel, the president of Union of Concerned Scientists, has a great way of putting it. He says, we have the tools, we need the will. And that's how I kind of feel like we are. The science is there, the tools are there. All kinds of people are doing fantastic things, as we've heard about for the last couple of days. But there's still that acceleration that we have to do more. And if I could, back to that point, to come back to what you do, because I was so overwhelmed by your role in this conference and what you do. I think it'd be great if you could just describe a little bit. We were talking about sort of the two things that you do and how they blend together. But this idea of really lifting people to a new place and giving them new perspectives, that's how I felt when I saw your presentation. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I think that, for me, it's making choices with greater intent. ultimately, and using science to actually affect the choices that we're making. I'm not sure if this is sort of answering your question or why it has to interconnect, because otherwise what we're doing is, we're just using gut instinct, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, instead of actually making more informed choices based on science, based on research. And in the creative space, with connecting with people, it has been acceptable. Like, nothing's changed over the last 100 years when it comes to even event formats or speaking formats or presentation formats. Yeah, you can shorten them like a TED Talk, but then what you do is just stack them on top of each other and you net the same results. You're going to overload, and wonderful storytelling is going to get lost, and an impact isn't going to get made that will bring people closer to causes or to what we hope to inspire them to do. So for us, looking at it from more of the lens of the sort of going inside the mind of the people that we want to connect with. I just had a cognitive fatigue moment myself. It happens.
Well, what happens when I listen to what you do, or experience, I should say, is it reminds me of an orchestra, because it's got all these different elements. So
that's right.
There's the words on the screen, there's the voice, which is all related but different element. And then you've got the visuals, and then you've got the music. That you choose amazing music in terms of it. Just literally,
thank you.
The bass of it rocking you, and then you've got the sort of things that are happening around you, and then all the sequencing of things coming in and out. And that's why I think it's so, for me anyway, that's why it was so powerful, is because it stimulated all these different sensibilities, and your mind starts making different connections.
And I appreciate that. I mean, we have a lot to battle against, as I mentioned, and things, distraction's only going to be increasing. And I was talking about this earlier about the richness of distraction. I usually talk about that as well, that when you think about it, richness of distraction is the evolution from a pager, which was just a vibration or a beep and a simple display, to telephones you could text. It's getting richer. Then to the iPhones and more of these rich interfaces, and then to wearable, where it's now in your peripheral vision, it becomes richer and therefore more distracting. So if we think of how it's going, we need to do more to get in front of distraction and use everything we have at our disposal, to captivate more senses than we've ever had to do, in order to bring people where we need them to go. So it's. Let me
ask you a question. Is it different if you were going for an effect and the theme was oceans? If it was a different theme, if it was, let's say, animal rights or human rights or any other number of topics, how many of those elements are sort of the same that flow through all of those, versus you sort of internalizing what the specific content is in the area and work on that?
Everyone is. This is naturally, you would think, because it's an ocean, it's naturally immersive, right? Because we have so much texture to work with. We've done the same thing for bringing patient stories to life. It's just the mechanisms might change somewhat. There's, I always say there's 6 ways to skin creative. There's always a way to do that, and regardless of what the cause or what we're trying to achieve, it's using the same, I would say, the same insights, the same research, the same techniques, for lack of a more technical term, to bring an audience into a story. It's sometimes it's also not. Sometimes it's devoid of something, like darkness, or silence is so much more powerful than people think to capture attention.
I think the other thing that's great about what you're doing here is that it's a backbone that goes through the whole event, and it evolves into different stages, and it evokes different elements of it. And that's what you want to have happen, is you want the people who are here, as they connect and get to know each other, and have a meal together and talk on the side, as well as see the presentations. Then in the end, you want that to build to something in the end, so that they carry something forward after the final bell.
Right. We want them to remember more than 25% of their experience here. So.